Quick review of the GPP-4323 programmable DC power supply. This thing is beautiful. I love it. You'll love it. Buy it. The end. Um, if that's not a satisfying review for you, let's go through a list. Get a good and the bad and the ugly list going on. So let's talk about the good first. So let's give it a quick restart here, and oh my gosh, it restarts so fast I can't even rave about how fast it restarts in the time that it takes to restart. Beautiful. That's what I want to see. I wish all my equipment worked that way. That's just that's fabulous. Also, the encoders are just they're mapped right directly onto the digits. There's no weird momentum mechanism. You've just got the standard. You can move between digits. It doesn't. When you bottom out one of the digits, it doesn't pop up a dialog that stalls for 5 seconds and punishes you for daring to go beyond zero. It doesn't it doesn't move the editing decimal place, punishing you for daring to go beyond zero. It reliably it just sticks where it was, and it obeys the instructions that you're giving it. That's how a machine should work. That's how all inputs should work. I love the design that's super responsive like this. I wish all devices work that way. Cool. The display also very well thought out in its layout. There's nothing innovative under the sun with power supply. Power supply features they offer, the displays they offer are pretty standard stuff, but they're uniform here. You've got it's well factored out. You've got up top, you've got the measured quantities. On the bottom, you've got your set points, and then on the left bottom, you've got your standard operating area, voltage and current limits, and then on the right, you've got your cutout, your safety cutout limits, your over voltage and over current protection. It's the same for each channel. The channels are a little bit non-homogeneous in terms of their ratings, but the displays are homogeneous, and the displays are really what you're going to be interacting with more. So just super well thought out. You can, if you want to, exchange display area or exchange away all that detail for bigger fonts. And maybe as I age more and as my eyesight deteriorates, maybe I'll do that. But right now okay, I can read the small print just fine. It's a nice bright display. Even when I've got my nice bright backlight on, it's a nice bright display, and it overpowers that effortlessly, and I have no trouble reading it. So right now I'm just going to stick with the default. The default is beautiful. So other good things. Let me see. Oh, they integrate an electronic load. How about that? Very very convenient. That's another box that you don't have to have on your desk. Power supplies, you accumulate them. You always need one more. This is replacing 4 single channel power supplies that I had accumulated because each time I thought, oh, I just need one more power supply, just one more, and now I'm at 4, and they're all different models. Whatever was cheapest or whatever at the time, and they all have different interfaces, and some of the interfaces are really weird. Like to get at on the tech powers, to get at the over current and over voltage, you have to hold down a button for a couple seconds, and I forget whether it's the voltage or current button, and then you have to you have to hold down the other button to go between voltage and current, and use the opposite thing to it. It's weird. It's weird and frustrating, and so frustrating that in practice I often skip doing it. Whereas that temptation is much lower on the GPP-4323, and that's the thing about safety devices. Half of a safety device is if it works, and the other half of the quality in a safety device is it simple enough that you actually use it. Because we all like to pretend that we're all saints that always follow all safety procedures at all times, but in practice, man, if there's even the slightest stumbling block for applying your safety settings and safety cutouts, there's an awfully big temptation to just not work with them, because usually you don't need them. Usually you'll get away with it. So removing the barriers to being safe and being proper is always a good investment, and that's something we see here. Although it really isn't that much of an investment. If you add together the cost of my 4 single power supplies, I think the first 2 were slightly under $100. Slightly 2 were a bit more. And then I needed an electronic load on top of that. you're basically at the cost at the $550 $600 cost of this thing, and but this thing offers it in a smaller form factor and more uniform, and everything's linked, and everything can be remote controlled, and there are a couple of clever features. So as I mentioned, there's the uh, load, the electronic load is integrated in there. It's not a super sophisticated electronic load, but that's fine. Um, like it's not going to do like load waveforms or anything. Not fast ones anyway. It'll do slow load waveforms. Also, yeah, you can program in waveforms here, but again, the supply isn't the fastest, and this is a one quadrant power supply. So like, it can do it can bring the voltage up very efficiently, but like there's a slowish, I think it's like 40 millisecond RC curve whenever it wants to drop the voltage. This emphatically it's not designed to output waveforms, and it doesn't do a great job at that. But that's okay. It's a power supply. I bought it to be a power supply, and I suspect you will too. So that's my review. That's the positives. Okay, so the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, the bad. The bad. There's really only one nit that I want to pick here for that I think rises to the level of quality of bad, although it's arguable because the tech power supplies that this replaces were a lot worse. So let's go for tiers. So the lowest tier were the Tech Power, I think 3005s. You had to do this weird, hold in the button in order to access overvoltage and overcurrent. And then if overvoltage and overcurrent actually did trigger and safety cut out the device and locked it in ideally the zero current state, it wasn't actually a zero current state. It was like minus 10 milliamps, and minus 10 milliamps is like a lot, and it's negative, and that's weird, and it could rise to like a volt or two, and that's weird. Like what? Clearly somebody didn't think through that mechanism very well. So that would be the lowest tier, well below the Instec. The next so it's difficult to use, and it does the wonky voltages. The next lowest tier would be the more expensive Tech Power that I bought. The programming interface was significantly less weird. There is a dedicated button for overvoltage and overcurrent, and the voltage and current knobs behaved as you might expect there, and it actually cut out to 0 volts, 0 amps. So good on it, but it was still a little finicky to actually use. It didn't display the limits up front. You just had to kind of you got an LED that they were active, and you just kind of had to know what they were behind the scenes, and it was still a bit fiddly to set them. Here, not only do they work exactly like you'd expect, where they generally cut out 0 voltage, 0 current, they and they're constantly displayed. But there is a tiny caveat, which is that they're kind of slow. I think it takes tens of milliseconds for them to go into effect when an overvoltage or overcurrent condition hits, and that's that's kind of typical compared to the other supplies. But they made a really big deal in their marketing copy about fast hardware overvoltage and overcurrent. And if you're going to make a big deal about fast overvoltage and overcurrent, it should be fast. I hesitate to bring this. This is in a completely different price class. This costs 10 times as much, but I previously did overvoltage and overcurrent with a script on this thing because it's not a native capability that would just loop, and if the voltage and current exceeded a certain level, it would just chop and cut out, and that can react within a couple of microseconds because that's how long it takes the script to measure the values and set the values. And so for a device that has dedicated hardware to take tens of milliseconds, that's a little bit disappointing, but it still does the job, and it's a lot better in terms of not outputting minus 10 milliamps when it's in the supposedly off state, and not being difficult to set up. So the bad part of this is less bad than all the previous Tech Power supplies by a lot, but it's still not great. I had their marketing copy moved my expectations up. Reality is a bit lower. Honestly, if this were me, I would just adjust the marketing copy a bit. Say, yeah, we do overvoltage overcurrent without my expectations of their overvoltage overcurrent being particularly fast. I wouldn't even have brought this up, but they did say they were fast, and they weren't, and that bugs me a little bit. Um, and then ugly. Well, there's a little bit of weirdness. You get this in all Instax power supplies, where like channel 1 and channel 2 are in the center. Oh, I've got them in coupled mode. And channel 3 and channel 4 are on the outside, and they kind of do this weird wrap around it. I'm sure they're a Thai company, I believe. I'm sure this is something in Thai culture that I'm just not respecting, but I would have kind of preferred to have it go channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, and it's not. In practice, the layout here matches the layout here, and that's fine. That's fine. There's no problem. I have to color code the ends of the wires anyway, just because the wires all go into a tangle when I'm using them all. So really, there's no huge imposition in having them in a slightly janky layout. But it is enough to qualify it for ugly. But that's really all. So that's my review of the device. Thanks for watching. I guess actually I should say one more thing. I'll review the distributors of the device, because I particularly wanted the one with the LAN option. LAN is not default. It's an option. It's like a $30 option, so it's cheap. Why not just get it? But it is an option. And LAN is I prefer LAN over GPIB or RS-232 or USB or whatever. So because you can network it, you can put it on a switch and then control everything from your computer, and that's great. But it was an option, and then I ordered from, I believe, Top Dog Test first, and they didn't really have an interface for the option, but they kind of showed their device having the option. So I kind of I ordered it, but then I kind of got cold feet and asked, well, do you showed it in the picture, but you didn't list it in the specs. Do you really have it? And they're like, no, we don't, but we'll get it for you. And long story short, they didn't get it for me, and they shipped me a device without it, and then they kept promising to follow up and not following up, and blaming it on coronavirus. But you can blame delays on coronavirus, but if you keep not following up when you say you're going to follow up, and then requiring being poked 4 times to follow up, and then clearly not even reading the preceding email in the chain when you do. You can't blame that on coronavirus. And so Top Dog Test is not a good source for GPP-4323s with a LAN option. Tech Equipment, though, just shipped it right away, and it was fine, and it worked, and I'm a happy customer. So go Tech Equipment, and they've got that EV blog discount code. So yeah, you know where to get this. If you're in the U.S., if you're in another country, you're unfortunately going to have to know your local distributor's situation all on your own. But I trust you can do that, and good luck. That's my review. Thanks for watching. Bye.